Hello, Jen Gilchrist here. So I'm going to do this video on, so what if the divine masculine got the karmic soulmate casual relationship pregnant? Okay, this is in the air for sure. And it has happened for some. And it could even go both ways. Actually, as I was preparing to talk about this, because I had a perspective, kind of through my experience that I'm going to share with you guys. But then also I was seeing how it could be really from both perspectives. But I'm going to speak of it mostly as if the divine masculine, or the man in this case, got the feminine, or not the feminine, but like somebody who's not the divine feminine, right? Somebody who is just sort of a casual relationship or a karmic relationship pregnant. But know that this roles could be reversed, right? This could also be for the divine feminine who knows she's in a relationship or kind of dabbling around with an ex or something like that. Either way, there could be some manipulation trying to happen in terms of feeling the twins come together, feeling that the divine feminine and the divine masculine, whom perhaps are in relations with other people, even casually, they're starting to pull away and energetically be drawn towards their twin, or at least away from that relationship, because they're seeing it as toxic or not healthy or just not going anywhere. Whether they're aware of this twin flame journey that's merging for them on an energy level or not, they are pulling out of situations that are not serving them, and the opposite person in that relationship doesn't want them to go. And so there's this energy around this manipulation tactic of some of them wanting to get pregnant on purpose, right? Or get the person pregnant on purpose, either direction, male, female, in order to keep them in their life. Okay. So that was something that I actually wasn't planning on saying, but I feel like this title, or they're sharing with me, the angels had big talkings too on this topic, to address it, really. So for some of you who this hasn't happened yet, be aware, take responsibility for yourself in that case, to take precaution, right? Take responsibility, because this is going to be possibly a tactic that might want to be used, okay? So just be aware that it's your responsibility, both sides, right? Setting that aside, now, for a lot of people, this has already happened, and this is really what I was being called to address for the collective. Is like, well, what happened if, and I'm just going to speak in terms of the masculine got the woman pregnant, because it's too complicated to go back and forth, guys. So if you're watching this, and if you identify different or same whatever, just, you'll get the context of this, I'm sure, okay? Because it's too hard to go back and forth and explain it the whole time. So we're just going to say that the masculine, or the man, is in a relationship, in a casual situation with somebody who they know they don't want to be long-term with, or it's just not healthy and it's going to break down, right? Because it's not really their true twin, and they are a twin. And so clearly things are going to end if they haven't already. And this person got pregnant, right? Perhaps they even met the new love interest, or the divine feminine, or perhaps they haven't. Either way, they know they don't necessarily want to be tied to this person for life, but now they're like, oh crap, I got this person pregnant. And perhaps they do know who they're more interested in, but they know they've got this person pregnant. So they're like, oh shit, I'm so screwed. This can't happen. So I'm seeing where this is a block, or a perceived block. It's not really a block, which is why I'm doing this video. But a perceived block from some of the men not wanting to know how to reach out to their divine feminine or their love interest, because they feel like, oh my gosh, like there's no way to get through this situation. I've got somebody else pregnant, right? And they're freaking out a bit. And I think this could happen on the other side as well. Again, with the woman getting pregnant in a situation that they know doesn't feel correct, right? So there's that. Oh, that was the other thing. And it could be that the divine feminine feels a little bit like they don't want to deal with that. Like, oh my gosh, like here I thought this was the person, now they're tied to their karmic partner, or they're tied to the other person, and she's manipulating, and I can't even deal with it. So they're triggered. Like they're triggered, right? So someone's triggered in this relationship. Somebody got somebody pregnant with a person that they don't really want to be tied to for life, and now they're feeling like they're screwed. And the opposite person may also be a little bit stressed out about it, right? And so it's kind of creating a hiccup in the connection. And so I'm here to address a few things. In true twin relationships, first of all, the angels came through very strong. And I'll share a little bit of my experience about how this all came about and some different things that it triggered, just even a possibility of it. I don't know it to be true. But collectively, I'm here to share messages for this particular wave of twin flames. This is a relevant situation and a very much a potential possibility. So if you've been feeling worried about this, if you're drawn to this video, either somebody's pregnant or you're worried about getting someone pregnant or you're worried about getting pregnant, right? So then take responsibility pretty much is what I'm saying. Because it's definitely, you're reading the energy right about the alternate person kind of wanting to do this as a way to keep you because they feel you leaving, right? So I feel like I'm going in circles. I'm sorry. Some of these things are just hard because there's so much information to share and then so many possible scenarios. So I'm going to try to break it into a few ways. But the bottom line is a true twin flame connection, nothing is going to be actual block that can stop this from happening unless you choose it to be a block, right? Everything can be transmuted. And in truth, children are always gifts. Let's just be real. It might be shocking. It might be stressful. It might not be ideal in some seemingly ideal, right? And it might be difficult in some ways. And it's going to require a lot of honest communication. It's going to require, handling it properly for sure. If this is your situation, but it can be handled. It can be handled. And it's actually a gift, right? Children are always gifts, right? They are always a gift, right? It will be okay, pretty much. So in my situation, just to give you an example, and this is what twins do, right? You meet each other and you're mirrors. You're mirroring everything, each person's fears and insecurities and, your positive aspects too, but you're also mirroring, or the point in this separation phase is you come together to you mirror people, you mirror their fears, right? And they come to the surface, or their insecurities, or their bad patterns that are out of alignment, or everything, right? Gets kind of triggered out, but usually not done on purpose. So in this instance, we had a conversation and he asked me a question. And in the moment, I don't even think I ever answered the question because I was just like, what does he mean by that? We just carried on. But then a couple of days later, it kind of came to me I wonder if he got someone pregnant or if he's worried about that. It just kind of came in a fleeting thought. A few weeks later, I was in Carmel and I was doing a lot of processing, and this information came back around with my angels as I was kind of in this very mystical space of getting a lot of information and downloads around this connection. I was not realizing that this was initially when we met until a few days later, and the whole month was just revealing a lot. And so in that inquiry, it triggered me to a lot, but really, he could have just been saying, because he may not have even meant it that way. But the point is, when you're meeting people, yet the twins trigger each other into deeper healing. And so this forced me, this possibility, which is a possibility, forced me into this deeper level of healing with myself on a lot of levels. And so if that's the case for you, especially if it's the feminine, if it's whoever's the opposite person who's not got somebody pregnant or not pregnant, this might be some deeper healing work I'm going to share with you. But then also for the men to realize, or whoever got the person that's not the feminine or the romantic interest pregnant that they really want to be with, it's not actually a problem as long as there's honest communication. You stand up and you handle it in a proper way, right? So for me, it triggered up a couple of things and then a couple of perspectives that the angels wanted to share as well. First of all, if your twin has children, even previous children, right, in truth, your twin flame, right, is only true for twin flames, not for soulmates. You started out as the same soul energy and you broke off into two parts, at the eons ago, way long, lifetimes ago, right? And you've been separate and you don't even often incarnate together. Usually each other's kind of spirit guide. If you're in this lifetime, then you are kind of wanting to embody and unify together again in this lifetime, which is not a common occurrence at all. It's very rare. So in reality and in truth, that baby is of you, right? You're going to have a spiritual agreement or contract. So even if this is a high level soulmate contract, right, or relationship, I say contract, I think that triggers the men too sometimes because they want to have choice. Of course you have choice in the situation. So I think this is sometimes with the new age lingo, it's just easy to get into the talk about. It doesn't mean you have to do, you can do whatever you want, men. I feel like, I don't know why there's some men watching this going, I get it, they want to have choice. Well, you do have choice. You do have choice. But what I say is soul contract. A soul contract means before coming into our incarnation, you guys both agreed on this because you both want this. Okay, so it was a mutual thing, or it was a mutual agreement with a karmic partner to learn, grow, and transmute or become aware of something, right? So these things are, when I say soul contract, it doesn't mean you're obligated. chances are you'll kind of go through it. But, this, especially for your twin flame, that's what you want. It's like the highest bliss nirvana for both people. It's actually the highest path. So if that's what your agreement was, which I believe the people I'm talking to, it is. I don't know. Sometimes when I go on these tangents, I kind of will go into self-judgment of like, I'm all over the place and going here or there. But the interesting thing is when you're like, I'm sitting here doing this reading and I'm feeling already the resistance and the questions and things that are coming in. So it's like, even though I haven't pressed publish yet, I'm already addressing and seeing what the viewers are going to be saying and thinking and being concerned about. So I'm sorry if it does feel kind of all over the place sometimes, but sometimes it's important to adjust things I'm realizing along the way. So that's that. You always have free will of choice for sure. But in this scenario, the triggers that can come up to be healed that I'm going to address is that realizing that you guys are having a spiritual connection with their kids. So if this new person has a baby and you guys are twin flames and you end up and you guys are together, it's going to be a blessing, right? You have an important influence on that child's life, right? And another aspect that could happen for many of you is just what triggered for me, again, whether this is true or not in my dynamic doesn't matter, because it forced me into much deeper healing that I wasn't aware of. So maybe that's what this is for you as well. Or if it is happening for you, then this is your work, right? How is this triggering you and what is it calling forward? For me, it was a couple of different things. First of all, I have already had this situation happen twice in my life, right? So I was being called to deeper levels of healing. So perhaps if you're watching this, you may have been in a situation where you found yourself in a relationship with somebody who, like in my case, there was 2 times. I'm like, 3 times? Really? Don't tell me this is really a 3rd time. They're like, calm down. Do the work, do the healing. Basically, it was calling me forward to this deeper healing around 2 times I was in relationships with people that did kind of have new babies with people that they told me they were done with and blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I'm fine because I'm open heart. I don't have, like, the kids are always innocent. And so we would go along this way for even quite a while. And then the woman that they were dealing with, the mom, was very manipulative with their, financially, using the children as pawns, which is a trigger, right? Using financial manipulation, emotional manipulation, and the men weren't stepping up. They didn't trust. And so they allowed this karmic situation to continue by not taking a stand, which really just fucked up everything for everyone. Okay. It really just did. And so there was a big wound for me because twice I was open to this, and twice after over a year or more or longer time, I ended up, we were not a unified front. This woman always had power over and control over because the man wasn't trusting enough to step up and handle it properly from the beginning, in which case this ugly dynamic happened, which isn't healthy for anyone and was very annoying and hard to be on the other side of it. So I understand, like, if you're the woman and you're in this situation, or the divine feminine got understanding that the masculine got somebody else pregnant, there could be fear there that you're not going to be chosen first. You're going to be put second, that there's going to be secrets, that there's going to be a lot of manipulation happening that isn't healthy. So you guys got to kind of understand what your true root trigger or fear is, which I think that could be really what it is for a lot of them. Feeling kind of on the outside, not chosen first, just this dynamic that where you're like, I don't want to play that karmic game. And so that's something to consider really for both sides too, for the men to realize that, are you going to let this person control you, basically, and use the kids as a pawn through money and emotion because you're afraid of the retaliation or, not being able to see them, all this stuff. Like, it's like if they can just handle it with trust and strength in the very beginning, with boundaries and with, doing the legal things, taking the action they need to do, it could be an okay situation or it could not be an okay situation, depending on how people handle it, how open the communication is. So if this was to happen, it's just going to require a deeper level of communication, rising up for the men to rise up and, handle it properly, for the women to trust, and you guys be a unified front with this situation. It will all dissolve and be handled well. The karma partner is not going to like that, right? That the whole part of it is they're using this as a way to try to control and keep that man in their life. And a lot of times it works to a degree, right? Because these kids are innocent and the men feel obligated, have a heart and responsibility towards that, which I understand. But it can create an ugly mess when they're allowing that control and manipulation to happen, whether it's through emotions, through visitation, through finances, right? It doesn't have to be that way if they set that precedence from the beginning, but oftentimes they don't. That was my experience twice. And it's very hard to be in that, right? Oh, I wouldn't want to do that again. And it won't work, right? That would be creating this karmic situation. But there's a lot of fear around that, I feel like, for some of the women who have maybe either been in that situation or fear that situation. And so you got to get under it and heal it, right? So for me, it's like, oh, I realized there was a lot more healing around being chosen second, not being chosen first. Like that has nothing to do with even the relationships I was in that happened with, or this current probable situation that I don't, whatever, may or may not even be, but it was there to trigger me into deeper healing because I had so much work around these previous relationships that I'd given my heart to all of the situation and got burned, right? And so I had to heal that. And so whatever's going on, whatever your trigger is, understand that it's not about this particular situation. The Power of Now and A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle are both really good about understanding how to transmute the pain body, as he calls it. There's a real, I work with people on these kinds of things, but I don't want to stop to do that. But I feel like some of you might want resources like, well, how do you actually heal the underlying cause? It's never the outward experience right now. It is the deeper trigger underneath it, which is all about how you feel. And for me, it really triggered my abandonment wounds I had. Didn't know my birth father. There's all these, rejection, abandonment, being chosen second, not being chosen first, kind of giving your heart and being screwed over, this kind of a thing, right? There was fear or pain around that. So I had to do that work. Okay. And then there was also the issue of, for some of you, another chunk of you, maybe you had, an abortion or a miscarriage or given a child up for adoption, in the past. Like for me, I got pregnant. It was a very unhealthy situation. It's already young mom finally just got out of a really unhealthy, abusive situation with my daughter's father. And she was little, and somehow I cannot understand. I can't understand. I got pregnant again from another person that was just the same. I was still young, and I was like, "There's no way I can do this." So I had an abortion. A couple of times, this baby wanted to come through me, and I became very aware of that. This baby boy spirit, in particular, right, or at least to me, was going to come through as a boy, may not, and if it comes through this other person, but wants to come through. Well, if I had a soul agreement with that, so the angels are telling me to share this too. If I was saying no to that, but on a soul level, I actually am a big part of this child's life. Well, or maybe you're too old to have babies now, or you don't want to have babies now, or, this happened. Maybe it needed to come through a different person. And so actually it is kind of you fulfilling your soul agreement with this baby as well, right? Maybe it needed to come in a different way because you were saying no to it. That's possible. Now, again, it had to strike me to heal. It's like, oh my gosh, I have all this guilt. Now this whole situation had to happen because maybe if that happens, it's because I didn't have the courage to say yeah, whatever, right? So it starts. This is what's so funny about the twin flame situation is like they don't even know they've triggered you. It's just some simple, easy question, and yeah, it just goes straight to the heart of all this deep shit that you didn't even know was still there, or you thought you addressed and you hadn't, and you had to go through, right? Which is kind of what's cool. This is why I haven't had the experience of people purposefully like sling and hate at we did not sling hate at each other, but I'm telling you, there's like a lot of things that were triggering the root of like situations like this that was coming up after the fact. And so a twin flame dynamic is different than most relationships in the sense that there is this separation, this coming together and this coming apart situation, but while you're together, you trigger these core things and reflect on each other, the high level of love that you can't receive yet, and at the same time, all the things and insecurities and fears and patterns and wounds and stuff that's not aligned, that you have not dealt with yet. And then when you go a separation, you're both healing, right? It might feel like tower moments or dark nights of soul, especially for the masculine, I think right now are going through that because there was some things they needed, people and things and situations and jobs, perhaps, whatever, that needed to let go. At the same time, so is the woman. Like all this stuff, nothing was really said, but things that were said or in the reflection started this massive healing, right? And so for me, it was like, oh, there's shame, and then now feeling responsible, like all this like stuff that I thought, I worked on in the past, and I probably did to the capacity that I could. And now this kind of just showed me, oh, there's more guilt. There's more shame around this. There's more feeling like I messed up now, created this fault. Like there's all this, energy for me to deal with, right? And so it's a good thing because you have to deal with these things in order to be open to this higher level of love, to be able to match with your twin and not be triggered by them and be able to stay together and be together, right? And that's happening for them too. It's just interesting how it goes. And so there's just a couple different scenarios that are lots of different things, but really it's not a block. I think that's the bigger thing too. I think a lot of the men are afraid to reach out because I just can't see how this could be accepted and okay. And they're still not accepted and okay with it. If that's the case, kids are always going to be blessings. You just got to handle it right, handle it properly. Yeah. And for the women, same thing. You got to get under your fear, around your fear about it not being handled right, right, or not being a part of it right. And then realizing that kids are always gifts. And, these children, do want to even come through a lot of twin flames. And perhaps they're not of the age to really do that or really want to do that through the body. So maybe now they're either going to come through their children. That's the other possibility I saw. Sometimes you have an agreement with a soul spirit and you don't end up doing it for whatever reason, then they might actually you might shift that karma might go through your children instead. So there's many, many, many ways and outcomes, but there's this real fear. And for a lot of people, it's happened or it's trying to happen, in which case be responsible if you don't want it to happen because, karmically, they're wanting to hold on to you. And that's a great way to do it. Well, they think it's a great way to do it. Of course, it's not, but it is what it is. It is what it is. So whatever has happened, right? And just know that you each have your part in handling it in a way that is a unification. So the thing is that as long as the divine masculine understands that and trusts, and then the divine feminine understand that, then they can come together as a unified front and not play games with this and just be a blessing for this baby, right? That's what could happen on the highest outcome, but it requires everybody to get out of their fears and out of their judgment and out of the karmic cycle of it all, and not to be controlled and manipulated through this scenario, which is kind of how this came about, right? So anyways, that's kind of long-winded, but that is something that's in the air for sure for a lot of people in this particular twin flame dynamic. And so just knowing that, and so also knowing there's a lot of you that maybe weren't open to having kids, and maybe when you get with your twin, you will want to, because there'll be a whole different kind of thing, right? And part of that also, another thing is within this, it can trigger your childhood wounds, about how things that you went through, or where maybe you had a dad, like, I don't know, I still haven't met my birth father, although I just reconnected with my whole birth side of the father's side of the family, with a brother and stuff in the last year and a half through ancestry. So that's been some interesting closure for me. But, there's that initial abandonment and rejection wound around, my dad, my biological, I had somebody that raised me that was amazing. So, or anyways, so the biological dad not being there still creates that inner child wound for me around rejection and abandonment, which of course this whole twin flame runner dynamic triggers, right? For all of us. I think for women, we're healing abandonment. This is interesting. I had this Venus and Mars deck. I've never used. I've had it for like 6 years, and I just pulled them out. I have not been focused on relationship, but I just looked down and saw it. It says Mars, her deepest fear is being abandoned. So this runner chaser dynamic that happens for the woman or the divine feminine, when they leave and they ghost you, when they just kind of like can't stay. You're healing your biggest fear is that abandonment and rejection wound, right? And so that's what we're being called to heal deeper in this when we're not talking. And then for the men on the other side, it says his deepest fear is that he's incompetent. And so it's interesting, perhaps there might have been scenarios that you made them feel like they weren't doing it right. They weren't good enough, or they were being incompetent in some ways. Or maybe for him, it's like, well, maybe he had an abandonment situation or something with his family childhood. And so he's like, oh, I don't want to be that guy. Like, I have to be responsible. So therefore I have to stay with this person, even though I don't really want to be with them. And I want to be over here. Or I just know I don't want to be there. But now I've got this baby, so I have to, right? So there's just, nobody needs to compromise. It doesn't have to be a problem if people are strong enough and loving enough to actually just handle things in the highest alignment for themselves and for everyone, right? The baby will be okay. So yeah, I don't know. There's just definitely a lot of energy on this. And I really see where that's part of the fear on both sides. If this has already happened, and if it hasn't, then again, it's just a call that if you're the guy and you're screwing around, well, be careful, because she might be wanting to try to do that to keep you, If you are the woman and you don't want to get pregnant, well, maybe that guy wants to keep you too. So be careful. You gotta take that responsibility of your own accord, because it can happen, even if it feels like there's very ridiculously minimally low chance. It can happen. I am proof of this. So, yeah, that's just, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I can't see my notes here, but I kind of jotted. I think that I pretty much, covered the main thing here on this. But mainly, it just doesn't have to be a problem, but it does need to be handled with, a unified front. You guys have to be a team. It can't be the secrets and the lies. You can't be succumbing to the manipulation of this person. It just needs to be handled right, with a lot of trust and communication, and done in the highest way possible. In highest, not allowing yourself to play in that karmic control manipulation game out of fear or out of guilt about being an incompetent or not wanting to not be that dad who's not available, right? You don't have to be with that person to be available. In fact, staying with people in an unhealthy relationship, for anybody that's ever grown up in households, that's not the best thing for the child either. Being in a super loving relationship to show them that point of view is positive. Staying with somebody with arguing and drama and chaos and conflict and control and manipulation and giving up of themselves, that's what you're teaching them to go do, right? So that's not the highest either, right? I grew up in a situation of, there's a lot of constant fighting. And then I felt like, sometimes you even hear the parents say, I can't wait till, I don't know. Basically, as a child, being in an environment where there's fighting, and feeling like you're the cause of the problem or the cause of why people are staying together is not feel good. It's not fostering. It's not help. It's not good. It's not healthy, right? And so, yeah, just think about that. But mostly, if these twins are coming together, which they're going to, it's always going to. I think that it's hard to beat this kind of love, even if there's resistance going on. But everybody does have free will of choice. And so, think about your choices and what you're doing, within it, but also knowing that, love conquers all, right? Especially with the twin flames. There's nothing that can really fuck this up unless you let it. The only thing that can do that is if you don't deal with your shit. If you want to stay stuck, basically. And even if you want to stay stuck, if one person ascends higher, the other person's going to pop up to it. And I feel this group is super far on an energetic merging level and on an evolution level, and has a very strong soul agreement to come together and to be together and to want to be together, that nothing's going to stop it. It just could get prolonged, or it could get muckier and murkier and more shit to deal with. Sorry, I'm cussing a lot, but it's just like this topic is like, I might have a little more on the 2 times that I try to stick with the situation, but clearly that wasn't the right situation. But anyways, that's kind of what I wanted to say, because I know that is actually happening for a lot of people, or the karmic person is trying to have that happen, to create a hiccup and a separation between the twins. So that's it. I hope that helped you. Let me know how this how this helped you or not. I feel like it could have been all over the place. I apologize if it was, but it's sort of a triggering topic, and at the same time, there's just so many different scenarios I'm seeing that it's hard to sometimes ground it into one aspect, because I want to make sure that as many different people from many different stages and perspectives get the message that they need to get within it and can see themselves within it. So take that on with context, and take what resonates and leaves the rest, as always. All right, well, I hope that helps. But that was like a big growth, and the angels really sat there and chatted with me for quite a long time on the topic. And of course, again, it was a lot for my own deeper healing. But if I'm going through that, then I'm thinking you're going through that. And if it's really happening for people, then they're definitely going through that. And it needs to be addressed, because it doesn't have to be a hindrance. Okay? So that's it. All right, have a good rest of your day. Talk to you soon.